Hello YouTube, what is up? NYKia31 here. Sitting here on the eve of the NFL postseason. The regular season has come and gone, and it is time for crunch time. Big games, big stakes. Should be fun. Should be a fun postseason. Interested to see how it'll play out. But anyway, I figure, why not hand out and acknowledge some folks that I feel are worthy of recognition over this past season in the NFL.
There he goes.
And where should we start? Let me start with my coach of the year. And I would have to say that would be Jim Harbaugh. Having San Francisco be good and relevant again is good for the league. It makes the league a fun place. It's kind of like how the league is more fun when the Redskins, Steelers, Packers, Cowboys, Giants are good. You know, anytime you have those traditional, teams, in the mix and relevant, and San Francisco has to be, considered in that category when you factor in all the championships they've won. It's good to see them back. And, a lot of credit has to go to, Jim Harbaugh for turning that team around in 1 year and them putting forward a 13-3 record. Honorable mention, the evil genius in New England, Bill Belichick. How in the world did that team win 13 games? That team stinks. You have a great quarterback, 2 good tight ends, a slot receiver, no running game, and a defense with a secondary that is, this side of Dallas Cowboy bad. I mean, that team just flat out isn't that good. It'll just show you what a, great quarterback and a brilliant coaching mind will do for a team, I guess. Because I have no other explanation as to how that team went 13-3 this season. And also a, tip of the cap to Commander Tom Coughlin and the G-Men. Sure, they finished 9-7. Sure, they, made things difficult on themselves, but they righted the ship in December. They overcame some adversity and injuries, and they did what they had to do to win down the stretch and get into the postseason. So those are my 3 honorees, led by Jim Harbaugh, as far as who I feel should be up there as far as Coach of the Year candidates. Rookies of the Year. Offensive Rookie of the Year, without question, it's got to be Cam. And Cam Newton is interesting to me. He reminds me, you guys remember how Steve McNair played when he was young? That's who Cam Newton reminds me of, but he's faster. He threw for a ton of yardage this year, partly because, he had to, and partly because he can. He's got a lot of great physical tools, and it'll be interesting to see how he, progresses from here. I think the only thing that you have to look out for is work ethic and the, mental aspect of playing QB. Those are going to be the 2 things that will, tell the tale for him, because, physically he's all there. I mean, he's got the goods, and he showed that he can play the game. So it's just a matter of how he evolves and, how smart the Carolina Panthers are in building a team around him. And if he can keep all that in check, he should have a, very productive career. I see no reason why he shouldn't at this point. He's certainly, shown that, he can deliver the goods. Defense, it comes down to
It looks like he was able to bring it down.
Von Miller
They say no, he didn't have it.
Jump on the ball, and we're all
And the kid from San Francisco, what's his name? His name's escaping me. Let me cheat and go to the stat leaders. Alden Smith. And I would give the nod to Von Miller. Sure, Alden Smith, 14 sacks, tied for 5th in the league with Terrell Suggs. Von Miller's 11.5 sacks. But it's not all about sacks. I think Von Miller is the better, all-around player. More tackles. I mean, sure, Alden Smith has better inside linebackers to take care of that for him. But, Von Miller can, I think, play the run better. He's just as good, if not better, in coverage. Had a couple of forced fumbles. Excellent pass rusher. He's just a total package. Well, I feel that Alden Smith is much more of a, pass rush specialist. Not that that's a bad thing, but I think Von Miller is the more well-rounded player. So I'll give him the Defensive Rookie of the Year. Defensive Player of the Year, I'm going to go with Jared Allen. Just had a great season despite being in a dysfunctional environment. You could go with Ware. You could even go with Jason Pierre-Paul or T. Suggs even. The thing with defensive backs like Revis will never have the stats. I mean, Charles Woodson has a typical Charles Woodson, stat line: 74 tackles, 2 sacks, 7 INTs, a forced fumble, and a, TD. Revis doesn't really have any stats because Revis rarely gets thrown on. So when you look at defensive backs, it's kind of hard to quantify their value in just sheer stats. I think Revis is the most valuable defensive player in the league. But as far as a guy who had the best year, I would have to say it was Jared Allen. Jared Allen just had a tremendous season. 22 sacks. Even had an interception. 4 forced fumbles. 4 fumble recoveries. 66 tackles. The guy just had an excellent season across the board. So I'll give him the Defensive Player of the Year. Partially because of his great season and partially because of the fact that he played so well and played so hard on just a terrible team. League MVP. Now this is a tricky one. You can go one of a couple of ways, and I don't think you can be wrong either way. To me, there's only, 2 real choices: Breeze or Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers had an outstanding season, sat out the last game of the season, threw for 45 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, had the highest QB rating in the league, high completion percentage, threw for a lot of yards, highest yards per attempt in the league. Just a complete, tour de force season for Aaron Rodgers. Just a, awesome season. And Drew Brees, you can't argue with his production either. As far as the passing record goes, I mean, it's a great accomplishment, but I don't know. I've always been a Dan Marino fan, and Dan Marino is the best thrower I've ever seen in my entire life. And if he played under these rules where you can't hit the quarterback, you can't touch the receiver, safeties, if they hit a receiver over the middle, half the time it's a 15-yard penalty. If Dan Marino played in his prime in this climate, he might damn well throw for 7,000 yards. I mean, the game Marino played was a completely different game. And, the rules have so skewed the game toward the offense. And a perfect example, if you go to ProFootballReference.com, 7 out of the top 10 greatest single-season passing yardage seasons have occurred since 2001. And, that's no coincidence. That's around the time where we started seeing, the rules evolve for the game that we have now. And in Marino's day, you could be physical with receivers downfield. You could actually, hold down the middle and take a receiver's head off if you were a safety. They didn't call, roughing the passer for breathing on somebody. I mean, it was just a completely different world. And Dan Marino just shredded that world. Whereas in, today's game, you had 3 quarterbacks throw for over 5,000 yards. Eli Manning came close. He was about 70 yards short. And in today's game, you have quarterbacks who aren't very good, throwing for 4,000 yards or damn near it. I mean, Ryan Fitzpatrick threw for 3,800 yards. Is Ryan, Fitzpatrick an elite quarterback? No. Mark Sanchez threw for over 3,400 yards and 26 touchdowns. Is Mark Sanchez an elite quarterback? Absolutely not. 5,000 has become the new 4,000, and 4,000 has become the new 3,000 as far as passing yardage goes. And if I had to choose between Drew and Aaron Rodgers, and not giving Drew brownie points because he broke the record, and not giving Aaron Rodgers brownie points for going 15-1, that's a team accomplishment, I think I would go with Brees. And the reason why is I think Drew Brees has reached that Peyton Manning level where he is the entire organization. He is New Orleans. Without Drew Brees, there is no New Orleans Saints. Without Peyton Manning, as we saw this year, there is no Colts. Whereas I feel like, Rodgers has more pieces of the pie around him, and he's, a little bit more dispensable than Drew Brees is. Not to say that Aaron Rodgers can be replaced easily, he can't, but if I'm choosing between the two, I'm choosing Drew. So those are my NFL individual awards. Hope you guys enjoyed this particular online ranked game. Hope you guys enjoy the first round of the playoffs, and I'll talk to y'all later. Peace.